Back in the cabin, I haven't done a video for the whole of summer really, so I was thinking I should get one done. What I'm going to do in this video is just go over a general quiver for like real world conditions, anything from 0 to 30 plus knots, flat water to overhead surf. I'll try and cut the video up into chapters so you don't have to listen to me banging on all afternoon. Start with boards, go into wings, and then look at foils. So this year on the boards, you know, the whole industry is trending towards longer, narrower boards, which you know, it is going the right way unless you're sort of into freestyle. But for me, I always want a board that it gets up early, and then once you're up, it feels as small as possible. I didn't want to go down the route of a mid-length. They're just a little bit too long for me. And the Rocket Prones were a little bit small volume-wise. So I've gone to the crossover this year in a 74. I'm 85 kilos, and I find 74 is ideal for, you know, 12 knots to that 30 knot wind range, and it still has the float. That locally here we have a lot of reef breaks and beach breaks, and the last thing you want is to be stuck in the impact zone, basically, because if you start getting washed back and you're grinding, grounding the foil out. You know, beach don't really matter that much, but if you start doing that on reefs, you know, it's an easy way to break a foil. So yeah, so 74 litres for me on the crossover. It is a narrower shapes, 21 and a half wide, I think, by what are they, 5'4". A lot of the volume is out behind your back foot, so you don't notice it when you're up and going. And they're quite narrow shoulders out the way, so when you're doing, you know, turning transitions, the board is physically out of the way of clipping a wave or clipping chops. Yeah, so that covers me from 12 to 30 plus knots. Then, you know, not so much this year because these new boards are so efficient, but on the lighter side, anything from 8 knots to that 12 knots. I use a downwind board. Now, this year I haven't tended to be on that so much. I think I've only had 3 or 4 sessions on it. And just because these new crossovers are so efficient. You know, and I must have had this year already like 140 plus sessions. So it shows how efficient these boards are, considering my biggest wings are 5. So yeah, and then, you know, any less than 8 knots, I'll subsurf that. And, you know, it's not one of the super modern, narrow, long shapes, but for subsurfing, which is what I do. I don't really do that much downwinding. You know, it's perfect, really. And that's 120 litres by 7.5. Paddle wise, just on a code foil, you know, those boys knows what they're doing. This is quality bit of kit. 85 square inch. Then on to wings, you know, size wise, I think you can, if you've got 2 boards, you know, you can easily just get away with a 4 and a 5 meter in Pembrokeshire. You know, we get a lot of 15 to 20 knot days. That's probably our most common wind strength. And I'm generally on a 4 meter. 5 don't really get that much use. so efficient now. These wings, once they get the light wind technique of getting them up, you can get away with 2 wings. See a lot of people still going 6-7 meter, which I've said it before. You're better off spending money on a bigger board. Basically, get a big mid length or a downwind board. You can pick them up cheap, and you've got a bit of hardware there that sort of replaces that 6-7 meter wing. A 5 has got plenty of power from easy from like 12 knots up. If you've got a big enough foil, it's a better investment in my eyes. The only caveat to that is if you're learning. Sometimes there's a couple of lads down here learning. They're on 6 meters and smaller boards just because they need their technique isn't quite there to the power the board up with a smaller wing. So, but once you get the technique of light wing get ups, you can generally get away with a 5 meter. This year I've gone over to strikes. Non-Alula strikes. Basically, that is because I sail in the waves 99% of the time. Swing in the F1 range is the wave wing, but I find the spot that I sail the most is a really tight bay, a lot of current running, a lot of seaweed, a lot of surfers, and a really turbulent wind. So I want a wing that can generate instant power, points really high, and handle a wide range of wind. Whereas the swing will it'll point high, and it's very easy wing to use. I wanted something that had a slightly bigger wind range and a crisper, snappier feel. Because there you have to tack off the cliffs nearly straight away. As soon as you pull out the wave, you've got to tack and then get out in a really small window. And I just find, for me, the strike, when you get it all together, the downsides of the strike compared to the swing weren't enough that it overruled that upwind ability. And when I say downsides of the strike when wave riding, so I'm flagging out surfing literally half the time I'm foiling. The strike is a little bit more active when you're flagging it. I don't notice it so much now, but when I first come off swings to go onto a strike, there's a little bit more active. It wants to fly, basically. They're a real powerful wing, and it's quite active. But once a few sessions, you don't really notice it. Then, so handle-wise, I've always like to say try to keep stuff super simple. So I always had just the most basic handles. They were the lightest and they were the least intrusive. So I always had not even the solid connecting ones. I had the floppy, just the material connection ones. Then, I got chatting to the rep, and he was I was saying how powerful these were, and he was like, have you tried them with a boom? And I was like, no, I think a boom would be getting in the way of what I want to do. And he said, you should try it, because I'm from a windsurfing background. And I tell you what, he was 100% right, because what the boom allows you to do is just bully the wing into being where you want it. You can force the wing into a position where a lot of the surfing I'm doing is in cross onshore conditions. So I'm actually dragging the wing instead of flying the wing. So the boom, you can just push the wing back behind you so it's back-winded, and it just gives you more manipulation of the wing, basically. So yeah, if you haven't tried a boom, it's a pretty good upgrade. So why have I gone for just the standard construction over the Alula? Again, just because of the spots I'm riding. Mostly in the waves, you're going to put the foil through the wing. Now, Wales, you can get you know, the Alulas repaired. You have to send them to a specialist, which, like, for us is probably Kite Barn, a fellow Rich in Kite Barn. You know, he does Alula repairs, but the local guys don't have access. Well, they have got access to those materials, but they don't work with it. So, just as a maintenance thing, I've just gone for the standard. Of the quick go I've had on the Alula, it's a better wing. There's no two ways about it. Slightly crisper, it's lighter, just slightly better performance. Whether you notice it in the sea, I don't know, but they are better. But just as a maintenance thing, I stuck to a standard construction. So yeah, that covers me for wings, 4 and a 5. As of yet, power wing, you know, that's all you see in it. You go on YouTube, you go on Instagram, you know, any of the socials. Everyone seems to be buzzing over the power wings, but at least in Pens, are always, you know, a bit behind the trends because they're a bit more isolated. Whether powering would work with the type of conditions and the type of spots that I sail, you know, we do have places that a powering would work, but I've got to drive away from a good surf spot to go and powering. Is it good enough to lure you away from that? You know, you don't know until you try these things. You know, the lads I've spoke to, there's Harvey up in North Wales there. He's ripping on one up in Rosniger. You know, he's leading, from what I've seen, he's leading the British sort of scene in it from a surfing perspective. And then, as you know, I spoke to a couple of guys about the frigate, the new F1, and you can't get hold of them. You basically, you know, I'm lucky enough that I'm ambassador for F1, and even to get hold of one, they're so popular that they're constantly sold out. Every time they come in stock, they're sold out again. So maybe in the next couple of months now, we'll have a look at that, but we'll see how it goes. So yeah, foils. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, I like to keep it as simple as I can. So skate, which is like the F1's wave foil, I suppose, but you know, it's a lot more than that. It's really good all-round foil, easy to use, but really big performance window. This year they've upgraded the construction to V2. It's more layered up basically. So the wings still breathe, but there's a lot more structure built into the middle of it. It feels a lot denser in the hand than the V1. And what that relates to is it's just a much more responsive foil. You can feel a lot more what's going on. So the performance window is up again on last year. Again, you could have a 1050 or 85 kilos. I could have a 1050 and that be my only foil. I've used this in some proper conditions, you know, overhead, slabby reef breaks. Well, you know, it wouldn't be my first choice to be on. It still works. It's so capable. Local lad, Mr. Appleton, he foil drives on a 1050, and like last week we were out in some proper surf, you know, double overhead plus, and fair play to him. You know, he was dropping in some proper waves with the 1050, and he must only be 70 kilos. And again, it probably wouldn't have been his first choice, but you know, it copes with it. Then, you know, as soon as it's like 14 knots, 15 knots, I go to the 750, just because it's fast. You know, small foils faster, a bit more capable. You can sit a bit deeper in the waves with them, and again, you know, they're not difficult foils to use. They get up early, good stall speed. I'm really maneuverable. Plus, you know, they just give you more options because you've got more speed. Yeah, really capable foils. I use all the skates I use with a 161 stabilizer because, again, just keeping continuity. It's easier for your brain to switch if you're swapping foils over. If you've got foils from the same range and you've got the same stabilizer, it's just the continuity is a little bit better. Then, you know, a bit spoilt really, an 850 V1, and this foil, I have just to have this foil in the range just because my local again is reef, so I don't ever want to run the V2 up on the reef. So I've got a V1 that if the tide's just coming up over the high spots, it's pretty hard to see where they are. So I have a V1 just in case I'm running up on the reef. And this foil has been up on the reef numerous times. It's been washed, spent an afternoon out to sea against a cliff, hit sandbanks with it, and like, yeah, it is slightly beaten up, but it still performs, you know, as well as I want it to anyway. There's no lifting of the carbon, nothing. It's real testament to the construction of these foils. Difference between the V1 and the V2 is just, like I said, the V2 is a lot more, gives you way more feedback. Whereas I always think it's like riding a, polyester windsurf board or a surfboard. There's a little bit more flex in it, a little bit more forgiving in the initiation of a turn. Well, not forgiving, just softer. But yeah, both good foils. And then, you know, icing on the cake really, Eagle X 900, just great downwinding foil, really good in surf. Like, you wouldn't believe it, for a foil that size. I use this in super light winds with the crossover, you know, like 10 knots, 12 knots of wind. Once you're up, because it glides so far, you just go to town with it. As long as you don't let it run too fast on a wave and keep the speed within its window, this thing will rip turns. It absolutely rips. It's really capable foil. And like, you know, all the F1 foils are fun to use. I think that is like where they try and aim their range. But yeah, there's an all-round weaker swells, light winds, or bump riding downwind. You can't really beat that Eagle X. And then, you know, lastly, a mast, just an 85 centimeter mast. This is a 14 mil one. You know, just fit and forget really. Never have a drama with it. It's stiff, just does everything you want it to. I use that for sup, surfing, and winging. And yeah, sort of ticks all the boxes really. That's about it. So you know, any questions again, just stick them down in the comments there. And if you could give it a subscribe and a like to the video to help out with the magical algorithm, it'd be much appreciated. Right, cheers guys.